Okay, our last session we learned how to do hollabah. And I think I posted this, which is also hollabah. Hollabah is the name of these ribbons that you see going across. And hollabah is great for learning the concept of tangling behind, because as you can see, these hollabahettes, these ribbons go behind the first ribbons. Here's a hollabah that hasn't been shaded, and it also includes a new tangle that I want to introduce you to today, and that tangle is called Crescent Moon, and it's one of the classics of Zentangle. So I've never done this before, and I'm a little nervous about it, but I'm going to tangle in real size right before your very eyes. Okay, and I'm going to make a border. I'm not doing the 4 dots, I'm just kind of doing a wobbly border. That looks good to me. And I'm going to draw in my hollabahs. I'm not even using a regulation Zentangle type pen, but I wanted something that was going to make it easy for you to see. Now you'll notice I pulled the pen toward me. What you're going to discover as you do Zentangle is that sometimes it works better for you to go away from you, like this. Sometimes you'll get better results going toward you. It just kind of depends on the day, maybe the design. You'll also notice that my hollabahs have a little bit of a bend to them. That's because I think they look a little more interesting with a little curve. They're curvy girls. When you do the trim work in the hollabah, you need to give it a little space. If you get too close, it's not going to look good. Let's see if I can do this without messing it up. And you'll notice that that second hollabah is running behind the first one. And now, because that's kind of too plain, that kind of looks like somebody's national flag, I'm going to do another hollabah back here. Typically, when you do things, you should do them in odd numbers. Odd numbers are more pleasing to the eye. Now, sometimes I'm going to be a little short when I draw a line, like right here. Instead of trying to stroke it or connect it, what I do is I go down and I dot it with my pen. And typically, the dotting it will do much better than stroking it would. Now, so we have a basic hollabah pattern here. As I said, we're going to learn a new tangle. It's called Crescent Moon. Let's get started. I think I'm going to put my crescent moons in here first. Crescent moon starts with a ladybug, a little bump. It's kind of a half of an orb. This is when the Zen kicks in. After you do Zentangle for a while, you'll find this kind of it's like this switch goes on in your head, and it's like, oh yeah, we're Zentangling. Yeah, this is time to relax. Now, what I like to do is when I've got sharp corners and I'm doing this, I like to put like little ice cream cones in the corner. This one I don't have much of a corner, but I like that. I like the way that that fills up the corner. Once you've got your ladybugs, you can color them in. And resist the urge to hurry. You know, in a lot of our lives, what we do is we hurry from one thing to the other. We're human beings, but we act like human doings. If we aren't doing something, we feel like we're failing somehow. And when you're doing your Zentangle, it's really good to just take the time and enjoy what you're doing and not try to set some sort of Olympic ski record for coloring in little ladybugs. Just say to yourself, I'm tangling, baby. You'll notice I made that one a little bigger. I kind of thought it looked a little lost there. And this one looks a little small, so I'm going to adjust the size of it too. That's one of the cool things about being able to color in your ladybugs. Sometimes we see the ladybugs better once they're colored in, and you might say, oh, I think this one needs a little more. This one needs fattening up. This one needs a little shaping up. Maybe this one will need a haircut. There, let's kind of smooth that out. Crescent Moon is one of the original Zentangle tangles. One of the cool things that Rick and Maria did was, unlike a lot of people when they create something or when they're the creative force behind something or a movement, they didn't say, well, we have to be in control of every absolute bit of it. So anyone can create a tangle. Anyone. You can. I can. The fact that I'm a CZT, that doesn't mean that my tangles are going to be better than yours if I want to create a new one. But they did start, and they do continue to add to a palette of tangles. And Crescent Moon is one of those tangles that's original to the founders. And it's typically one of the first tangles that people learn. And we tend to call these little things ladybugs. I love the fact that Zentangle has its own language. Okay, now I didn't do a real solid job coloring these in. I'll go back and touch them up just a little bit. Okay, but the next part that we're going to do is we're going to add an aura. An aura, if you remember, is a parallel line that shadows something. So I'm going to start here. And you're noticing probably that I've left a little sparkle there. I don't have to. I could make it solid, so I could like do the little ladybug, say, do a ladybug here, and do a solid aura. But I really like the sparkles. Now you're probably saying to yourself, well, what do I do like where the aura meets the other aura? Well, it's up to you. You can have them touch, you can have them not touch. You can create something kind of like a pattern that we later called between. It's up to you. And you'll notice here, I kind of have this kind of bizarre thing because these two were bumping each other. That's all right. I make an artistic decision to work around it. Okay, now I can't really get in there. That's okay. I'm going to draw a little part of a line just to kind of visually fill that up. And I'm going to go back to doing the auras. Oops, that one wound up being kind of straight. You know what these auras remind me of? They remind me of the arch in St. Louis, kind of. I don't know if you know this, but originally the two sides of the arch were not going to meet. Yeah, when they worked on it, somehow, some of the math was off. And for a while, it looked like they weren't going to meet. Because you see, they started one leg and the other leg. and it was supposed to meet in the middle. But somehow they managed to pull it off. They managed to do whatever math or whatever they had to do to make it work. And that arch is a catenary arch, which is the way a string forms. If you're holding something like this at each end, that loop that it forms is a catenary. I think that's the way you pronounce it. If not, email me and tell me, Joanna, you are wrong. You are wrong. I am often wrong. But that's okay. I keep trekking. Now notice that I'm kind of like letting these take turns. I don't really know a good way to describe it. I'm out of vocabulary here. When you get towards the very middle, you're going to have to make some decisions. And typically, you're going to have to lose that pattern, and that's okay. Just decide what you want. Decide how you want to make it. So, there we have Crescent Moon. Now I'm going to show you how you shade Crescent Moon, because that's when Crescent Moon really comes to life. Oh yeah. Using just a regular cheapo pencil. And if you recall, dark makes things recede. So start in the middle, and I shade that in darkly because I want that to kind of be a well. And then I'm going to the spot where these auras meet, and I'm shading that and adding some definition. You'll notice I wasn't even really very neat about how I did that. That's okay, because I'm going to blend it out in a minute. Now I want these little auras around the little ladybugs to have some 3D to them. So what I'm doing is I'm going in and I'm shading. Oh, one thing I'm doing is bumping the camera. Sorry about that. So I'm shading the sides of these so that each of these little ladybugs has like its own little cocoon. Ooh, this is buggy. Very buggy, very buggy. And now I use the best blender I've ever had. And I go back and take the eraser, and I pick up some of the color out of the middle. And then to make this even more dramatic, I'm going to even add more shade. So you'll notice what you wind up is something that's very 3D, and it really looks as though you could fall right into that section of mood rocks, and gosh, who knows what could happen. Maybe that's a tunnel to the other side of the world. So that's Crescent Moon. Now what you could do is you could fill in all the way around your hollow ball with Crescent Moon if you want. You can see how I did that on this. And the great thing about Crescent Moon is because it's just one aura after another, it's very relaxing. You can really just kind of get into it and let your mind drift. I want to point out to you that Crescent Moon, even though it starts with this one drawing or one creation of a ladybug and then an aura. Here I'm going to break the aura. I didn't on the first one. What you wind up with is, after you do a lot of them, you have what they call a meta pattern. In other words, you start with this pattern, but this pattern, when it's combined, makes this pattern. This is a meta pattern. And that's one of the cool things about Zentangle, is that it's not just about the individual pattern, it's how the patterns work together and how a repetition of a pattern makes a brand new pattern. Now in this one, I use Printemps in the background, and you're familiar with Printemps, but I did my Printemps in a slightly different way. I did my Printemps closed, so instead of going like this, what I did with my Printemps was I made them into these little fat little Printemps baby ears. So those are Printemps, and you know how to do that. This is poke leaf. Make the finger, make the leaf. You can do some dots out there if you want. Remember that your poke leaves need to grow behind each other, because everything in Zentangle happens behind each other, right? There are your poke leaves. And then this is another pattern. It's called Beeline. And here's how Beeline goes. So if you've got your tile here, you're going to make a grid. Well, let's do this the right way, Joanna. Well, that's not going to work. Okay, we'll flip it over like that. Yeah, my pen's kind of leaked through. So, say if here's your Zentangle tile. And if, well, that's, okay, we'll go back to here and I'll show you how to do Beeline. What you're going to do is you're going to make a grid. Do it lightly in pencil. A grid is nothing more than a tic-tac-toe board. Right? Now, we did flukes before, which is a square and then a little corner blackened in, and then it goes like this, right? Beeline is really the same tangle, but curvy. So you curve this, and you curve this, and you curve this, and you curve this, and you curve this. See? This is Beeline, this is flukes. So here we go. We're going to do Beeline. Now, one of the things you have to decide is where, if this is the B and that's the line, that's his path that he takes, where are you going to put your B? And I think I'm going to put my B's in this corner. Now, the other thing I have to decide is, do I want the B's to have a straight flight path, or do I want them to have a little gap, a little sparkle? And I think I'm going to do sparkle. I'm really kind of into sparkle these days. I remember seeing a t-shirt once that said, my favorite color is glitter. So yeah, I'm just into the sparkle these days. So I bring it. And then what I did was, when I get to the end, I think I stopped the sparkle because I like it solid there towards the end. So here I'm aura-ing the B, if you want to call that little thingy the B. Okay, and there's the sparkle where I interrupt it, or I interruptus, and then I go ahead and put the solid lines behind it because I think that that's, for me, it looks best that way. I think that it gives it more clout. Because when you get to the corners, if you've got that broken line, sometimes it just doesn't seem as attractive. So here I'm going to pretend that I'm doing this, right? And here I have to work behind, and here I have to work behind, and here I have to work behind. Now I'm going to drop down here. I'm going to make some B's. That's what I think of these as, B's, because I think the name of this is Beeline. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And now I'm going to do the auras. with sparkle, sparkle. Now I like to do a full aura because I just think it just looks best. Otherwise, I think the sparkles just kind of look like little sticks out there that just kind of happened. And here I'm pretending that there's an entire beehive back here. But you and I know that's not the truth. We won't let anybody else in on our secret. Okay. So odd, this kind of click that goes on in your head once you get into Zentangle. It's like, oh, I'm tangling. I can just relax. Okay, so there you have the Beeline, and that is what I did here, right here. In these, I did not do the sparkle. I did them solidly, so it would look something like this. Let's see, here's a square, here's the bee, and it would just be solid, which actually probably would have been a smarter idea to do because this is such a tight, narrow space. Probably the solid auras would have looked better. But that's up to you. Or you could do Crescent Moon. And then you'll want to shade your ribbon. Now, how do you shade a ribbon? Well, you have to decide where the ribbon overlaps, which is here. That's the first thing to look for. And we know that when something overlaps, like my hands over the paper, you're going to get a shadow, right? So shadow, 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 shadow. Start dark and then fade it out. Dark and fade. Use that wonderful shading tool that you have. I don't like how that's over that white line. It's a little too much. There, just a little bit. Now, what I want to do is I want to have a shine to this ribbon, and I think the shine should go right about here, okay? So I'm going to start down here with my coloring with my pencil. And when I get up to here where the shine is, I'm just going to flick my pencil. Flick, 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 flick. Now I'm going to start over here. And as I get to the shine, flick again. And as you can see, this gives the appearance of a shine, of a light spot. And if I darken this in even more and then let it fade, it's even better. How cool is that? Okay, now what I want to do is I want to do this ribbon. So I'm going to come down here, I'm going to be dark. And I'm probably just going to color it in for the most part. I want it dark here on the ends. If you don't have it dark in some spot, then when you get to the light, the light doesn't do anything. It's the contrast that makes things work. So here I've got a little bit of light, and then I'm going to shade this just a bit. And now it's going to get darker. again. And actually, I don't like the way that I did that, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to finish coloring it in. And I've decided that I think the shade, or the light source, the sparkle, should go maybe right about here. So I'm going to take my eraser. Do I have a better eraser nearby? Surely I do. Surely I do. Surely I do. See? That's all I needed. And now here, where this one overlaps, I'm really going to go in dark. Really. Here, where it overlaps, I'm going to go in really, really dark. Flick, 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 flick. Clean up a little where the white line is. Clean up in aisle 6. Okay. I think I'll probably win some sort of an award, I think, for the most careless tangler in the world. Clean it up there. Make sure that you get right up to the line. If there's a little white line between the shading and the line, it really looks weird. You don't want to do that. So one of the things Zentangle says is to actually take your pencil and go on the line, and that way you don't wind up with a little white gap. Now let me show you something else I've learned from Zentangle's classes. You can go back over your graphite with your ink pen. I don't know why that never occurred to me before, but I didn't do a great job because I kind of chewed into that. But now watch, I'm going to flick out with the pen. Whoop. Got a little overly ambitious there. My hand ran away from me. She didn't teach me to do all this scribbling. She just said, hey, you can put pen over pencil, which I hadn't really thought about doing. Then I rubbed it with my finger. That does give me a little more density right here, doesn't it? It darkened that up considerably. The pen marks kind of disappear, but it's much blacker there. And now, because I'm into fixing things, where did my white pen go? It's gotta be under here. Where did it go? Where did it go? Take my white pen and fix. This is a cheat. Don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody that I did that. Please don't tell anybody. That's our secrets. I just used my white pen and fixed that. Okay, and now I'm going to color in this one. You know, it's really pretty amazing what you can do with an ink pen and a pencil, isn't it? This one I think I'm going to leave a little lighter. And see, I've got this white edge. I'm going to go in and right there because that's really visually distressing. And I like this because now this one looks like it's overlapping that one. A lot of people get afraid to work with their shadows, and you can't. You shouldn't. I mean, you can always take an eraser and lift it up, right? Unless you do it with pen, as I did in that one part. But for the most part, you can use your eraser and lift things up. So how cool is that? We have 3 levels of ribbon here, hollow bars. And there I've got that white line, remember? I said that's really visually disturbing, so I go back in and kind of fix that white line. Oops, got a little overzealous there. And you can see how my hollow bars come to life, how they become 3-dimensional creatures, right? So that's Crescent Moon. This is Beeline. It's kind of a ratty looking Beeline, but it is Beeline. And this, in this case, what I did was I just darkened in Beeline and used it as a background. You can barely see it. And then you can put whatever you want here. You could do more moons. You could do big moons if you want. And then here, little chubby baby print tops. Yep. Just make sure to take them behind, because if you don't, they won't look as interesting. It's just not as cool. Notice I couldn't really get that many print tops in, but I got enough. Okay, and then finish that out, and there you go. You have a Zentangle tile. Well, I think there's only one more thing to do, and it's to say bye for now.